Whew. Well, guess I'm making a video. Okay, it's been a minute, hasn't it? I remember first few of these, I went very scripted. I wanted to be all YouTubery. But today, it's 3 a.m. and I really wanted to have an upload. So, I've gone ahead and gotten prepared for this. It's been long enough that it took several hours just to get to this point. I was like, I'll just go bust out that Avarak video people have been wanting and go to bed and wake up at a decent hour and yada yada yada. But here we are. So enjoy. Yeah, but seriously, it has been a cool minute since I've added to the series, I guess. Could you call it a series when it's only got one video in the playlist? I don't know, but hopefully after this we'll have a few more. But this is the Races of Hayethe series, Hayethe being my homebrew world that the Unnatural Ones campaigns run in. And yeah, first one we did was about the Demi and the Demira, both essentially humans and Kuru, if you're looking at the Pathfinder First Edition races. Which, was a pretty good video. I liked it. Most people did. So did a little bit of a poll in our Discord, and we've got these big fellas, the Avarak, to this side of me. They'll This is what people wanted to know about. You won't probably be able to read the stylistic choice I've put for the text in the background there, but I'll read it for you because I wrote it. The Avarak are unlikely unions of Rakag, orcs, and Avar, dwarves. These incredibly strong, solid, and sterile creatures are mentally stunted but physically terrifying. When I say sterile, I mean, yeah, they're kind of like mules insofar as they can't procreate. They can't make other Avarak. The only way that they are born is through the union of these two very unlikely species. It goes on to say, despite the compact nature of Avar and the stockiness of most full-blooded Rakag, Avarak are huge and menacing. With skin ranging from dark brown green to dappled bluish gray, thick, wiry white or black hair, and gleaming red eyes, these are truly intimidating forces of nature. Avarak stand at an average height of 6'8". Average height is 6'8", and a weight of 330 pounds. They look every bit the amalgamation of the Avar's ruddy and rough features and the Rakag's bestial visage. They have thick bulbous cheeks, noses, and the males typically grow full, thick beards and have sharp tusks that spear up from their front row of teeth. Their hair, thick bristling eyebrows, and beard are always black or white. It's pretty much the only two colors of hair you'll get on them. Their skin is a dark greenish brown or dapple bluish gray. I don't know why I repeated that. Don't worry about that. They always have red eyes. Despite their height, they're pretty stout. I tried to get a pretty good depiction of one here, even though it looks mostly just like an orc. But you should see that there's like some, he's kind of got hairy arms. He's like his hands are very big. His nose is a bit different than you would imagine an orc's being. His face is a little bit different. But they have these like kind of blunted, solid features. No one would tend to call them handsome necessarily, but maybe, I don't know if that's your thing. And they're all pretty damn well built. It's widely accepted that no Avarak was born of a happy union, and they are seen by both parent races as loathsome abominations, typically. Many are killed on sight, hidden away, or forced into servitude. They don't have a great outlook in the world of Hayethe, unfortunately. Because those are typically what happens to them. Even in even in places where slavery, indentured servitude and the like are not necessarily part of the culture, of the law, any of that stuff. You can still kind of see they can get a pretty bad rap. I don't know why I'm like cutting myself off down here. Anyway, uh, they're scary, and if you've ever considered it for any amount of time, people tend to react negatively to things that scare them, and a 6'8" on average, uh, chiseled, stocky, red-eyed, you know, dwarf orc is a pretty scary sight if you're, you know, a like 5'9" person like myself. So they are intimidating, naturally so. And in fact, they have some bonuses to that. So let's get into a few of the mechanics, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about their lore. Mechanically, the Avarak is not a PC playable race. What? Why are you making this video then? You can't even play the big scary dwarf orc thing? No, you can't. They're too powerful. Really, they are. They have... Let me just take a look. Hold on one second. I have some notes on what their average scores are. Let me take a look here. 1 second. By average, I mean like this is their baseline scores. So like a demi or a human would be 10s across the board. That's their average, right? Let's see. Where did I put stats? Right here. Yeah, average strength for an Avarak. This is, of course, before putting any modifiers for, their NPC scores and whatever. Strength is 16. Dex 10. On 12. And then all their mentals are 8. So, yeah, that's a huge buff. And beyond just the ability scores, they also have some pretty powerful features. Like, they don't do well in bright light, and if you're watching our Into the Storm series, the most prominent Avarak that you've seen is Varbrong, and you'll notice that he's constantly not complaining about the bright light, but he tends to avoid it. It bothers him, because they do have light blindness. They can be very easily blinded by light effects and things like that, or just sudden exposure to bright light out of darkness. However, their dark vision is insane. Typically, dark vision is about 60 feet. Theirs is 120. And they also have low light vision. They are absolutely geared toward working underground and in darkness. It's just a part of what they are, how they are. They are immune to poison. They're immune to paralysis and phantasms. So, specific types of illusions. So, an illusion that would appear only in their mind just doesn't work. Just does not work on them at all. They also just get a flat +2 racial bonus to saving throws against spells and spell-like abilities. You may recognize that from the Avar. The dwarves in general have that as well. Much like orcs or Rakag, they also have the ferocity feature, meaning even if they are dropped below 0 hit points, they can continue to fight. It's not necessarily good for them. They will be staggered, meaning they can only take 1 action per round. However, just getting them to 0 or below doesn't mean that they're not a threat anymore. They're very hardy, very ferocious creatures. I was wrong earlier. Their dark vision goes out to 90 feet, not 120, but they have certain ways to get it stronger. But they do remain dazzled in bright light, and anything with a light descriptor, such as the spell Burst of Radiance or something like that, they would take a -2 to their save against. Because of their menacing appearance, because of their just hulking appearance, and just how they can present themselves so easily as like a threat, they do automatically gain the intimidating prowess feat, just as a racial bonus feat, which allows them to use their strength modifier to their intimidate checks. Of course, creatures have to be able to see or see them and stuff like that for it to work. Except they also ignore their any penalties to charisma that they have to intimidate checks. So, despite the fact that they are not very expressive, they can just power through that. And they also count as both Avar and Rakog for any effects relating to the two. So, for example, a ranger whose favorite enemy was Rakog also gets their bonuses against an Avarak. Same if their favorite enemy is Avar or dwarf, then they get those bonuses against them as well. So, so those are your basic mechanics for them. They have a few others, but they're just they're a little too beefy to be handing to a PC. As NPCs, I can pretty easily, or if you decide you want to use them, because of the place they have in society, because of other surrounding events and set pieces, I can limit them. Because they can't make their own families and stuff. They can't really have things like clans unless several of them were to actually band together. But that's pretty tough. They can't form huge groups in most other societies because of the fact that they're sterile and not they don't have their own home. They have a homeland. I'll get to, but they don't have a central place that they've all sprung from and are still in consolidated. They're more of a diaspora in a lot of ways. But just PCs don't really get those same limitations, so it just doesn't make sense to use this as a race to let your players be. They're just a little too beefy. Here are the other reasons why. They also have the powerful build feature, which lets them essentially be treated as one size category higher for all beneficial purposes. Meaning, wherever it benefits them, they count as large. Wherever it would be a problem to be large, they count as medium. Yeah. Because they can get up to 7'9", is the upper end of how tall an Avarak can be, which is pretty damn tall. But don't quite reach the 8 feet that you get to before you start hitting large sizes. That feature alone is a big one. So we get that. Then they have some other alternates. You can get armed to the teeth, where they lose the menacing appearance, where they get the intimidating prowess, and they can get proficiency with improvised weapons effectively. They could get one where they change their base speed so that they go to instead of being a 20-foot base speed, which is their normal because they're kind of slow, to actually they go up to a 40-foot base speed. They lose a little bit of their strength bonus. They gain a dex bonus. But they also lose the slow and steady ability, which they get from their dwarven heritage, where they're not slowed down by encumbrance. So medium encumbrance or medium armor doesn't make them slower than the 20 feet. But yeah, they have a few other things. Those are the main ones for their mechanics. But I mean, as you can imagine, a medium creature that can wield, let's say, a large-sized greatsword, and is dealing 3d6 of damage per swing, and without putting anything else in their strength, they get a 16. That's a +3, which means if you're swinging a greatsword, you get your +4 to damage. It can be a lot. It very, very easily could be broken. But yeah, I wouldn't advise having your PCs be these. So, what else do we want to know about the Avarak? The mechanics are the mechanics. They're kind of fun. Oh yeah, I can tell you actually what a regular Avarak would look like because I've statted them. By default, Avarak I give racial hit dice. They have four hit dice at their base. Because if you were to find them like in the wild or whatever, just like doing shit, like they're just naturally that tough. But the ones that I build out, so like Varbrong, right? He doesn't have like 4 hit dice and then a shitload of class levels. Like he's replaced his hit dice with class levels, plus he has a few extras. But normally they have 4. So your regular Avarak would have 32 hit points, strength of 18, a con of 15, intelligence 7, wisdom 9, charisma 6. They got some dumb stats. That would be those, right? By default, they would have of course, they have their intimidating prowess, they would have the toughness feat, and they would have catch off guard, so they could swing around improvised weapons, right? So, that's just baseline. That's baseline. You got a 32 hit point creature with 18 strength, can wield weapons, can actually use tactics, that kind of stuff. It's pretty scary. And then like it changes as you add things like warrior NPC classes and shit like that if you want to change it up a bit. So they can be quite scary. Anyway, but those are those. What else? Is that it for the mechanics? If you want to know more about mechanical stuff, throw me some stuff and leave a comment, ask questions. I would be more than happy to answer those in the comments below. We're not done yet though. We got more to go through because let's go to the fun part. Let's get to some more of the lore here. Okay, Avarak are a lost people in many ways. If you're watching the Into the Storm series, you've gotten pieces of it from Varbrong, and it's kind of coming to a head recently. There is a land in the far north called Avrahana, which they refer to as their homeland. And it's not wrong. Avrahana is mostly famous for a period during the Starken Night, where there was a new nascent, basically a burgeoning deity, which was a thing happening during the Starken Night that was representing the Avar, and a nascent who was representing the Rakag, the dwarf and the orcs. They're going to have their own deities, right? But they meet on Avrahana basically in an attempt to claim the land, which was a lot of what was happening during the Starken Night. They fought there and they ended up killing each other. There's a lot more to that story that has yet to be uncovered, but that's essentially the background, right? You get a little bit of this if you watch the Demi and Demira video, because the Demira were supposedly born of this conflict. And so the Avarak are they see this as their homeland. Those of them who even know about it, because the only way they would know is to have it passed down from someone else, and they're not often allowed to just kind of be in large or even small groups with other Avarak, because on the off chance several of them band together and decide to overthrow whoever they work for or anything like that, it could be catastrophic for the people that we probably would root for anyway. But so it takes a long time for this kind of word of mouth to spread amongst them, and a lot of times stories and legends and things amongst the Avarak are very hush hush. They don't really want people to know their culture. They want other Avarak to know it, even though they won't have children to pass it on to. They may encounter other young Avarak and be able to pass this knowledge on. And then, of course, there's even some sympathetic parties. Some may be Rakag, some may be Avar, some may be total outsiders. None of which can truly relate to their plight, but they will. There's the occasional sympathetic parties that will record these things and try to help pass this word on. But it has been hundreds of years, and finally there are a few little nuggets of cultural legend amongst the Avar that many of them tend to know, especially in a land like Setsegia, where they are technically free people, even if it's tough for them to get by. They can't as easily just go get regular jobs and the like. People will still be somewhat prejudiced against them in many parts. You haven't seen a lot of that in Into the Storm, because they're mostly in Saigon, or they're mostly in large cities, whereas a lot of these places, there may be a bit of it, but they just haven't seen it. And Varbrong, being a bit more savvy, being not only a higher level character, but he's not a young Rakag, or he's not a young Avarak. He's not old, but he's been around a bit. Mostly kind of avoids certain things. Despite all this prejudice and such, they're a little bit more free to associate with others, including other Avarak, and they tend to be treated quite a bit better at arm's length, but much better in general. And so, let's get to some of these legends, right? The main one is of a prophecy of sorts, a foretold member of their people, an Avarak who possesses gifts of maybe the gods or something in his blood, but magic, actual magic, which is something that the Avarak are very unaccustomed to wielding. I mean, it would be very, very rare to encounter one who's been educated and taught the arts of the arcane. Certainly won't happen in the Al-Sani Caliphate, the home of arcane study, and it's pretty unlikely to happen even in more progressive places such as Benhia or Biencia, where they teach that they're very open with their education. But even still, like it's virtually unheard of for an Avarak to be born with like sorceress abilities or anything like that. It's pretty much never happened. But there's legend that there is one that has this gift. And not only do they have this gift of magic, but supposedly they'll be born with the ability to procreate, to actually have progeny. And that they alone will be the one to essentially lead the Avarak into a new age, into an age where they can have families and their own things, their own properties, like their own homes, that sort of stuff. Avrahana is meant to be that place, and this legendary figure who may yet have been born is said to be the one to like the catalyst for this change. What does that entail? Well, we'll have to see, right? It's a story I would absolutely love to tell, but we'll see if we get there. What else do we know about the Avarak? We know lifespan. Their lifespan is actually an interesting one. That's something I meant to address. So here we go. When it comes to the stunted mentally thing, Avarak are not stupid. That's a misconception. That's just a misconception. It's kind of a racial bias, whatever. Like many creatures, they just learn differently. And they have a very significant setback in that area. Their biology, their entire makeup is composed of two very opposed styles of living, of thinking, of interacting with the world. The Avar, the dwarves, do not reach adulthood until the age of 40. 40 years old is the adult age for an Avar. There's a reason for the stereotypes that they're so stubborn and so on and so forth, because they have a long time. They are slow and steady. They consider many things before acting when they've set a course for themselves. But that doesn't mean that they can't be impulsive. But they absolutely can be impulsive in the moment. But when it comes to setting an objective for oneself and then like setting out to achieve it, I mean, they're second to almost none, right? They can consider many different facets of an objective and really think it through, really take the time to ponder it, to talk to others about it, that sort of thing, and form a very solid methodology for how they're going to go about it and what they're going to achieve. Which is why it can be so difficult for them to make them budge on those things, because they've likely already considered your argument. But that slow and steady pace of learning, of understanding, of progressing through life is the opposite of that of Rakog. The Rakog reaches maturity at 12. At 40 years of age, a Rakog is near the end of their life. Legitimately. One of the sayings in Hayethe is that a Rakog lives 100 years in only 40. They tend to live fast, whether that be, you know, going to war and, you know, achieving all sorts of things, whether it be having a bunch of children, like whatever they want to achieve, even more than the Demi, who are just known to be very ambitious, very creative, very enterprising. The Rakog go and get whatever they need to get. Their lives are not long. They don't have a long time to establish a legacy, to live out whatever fantasies they have about what to achieve in their life. They do not have the time. So they tend to think very quickly. They tend to decide very quickly. And if they do take a step back and want to ponder and consider something, it's got to be a pretty big deal. When you think about the two mixing, when you think about what the Avarak's mindset is going to be when it comes to learning, when it comes to how their intelligence will be displayed, it's difficult for them. Internally, they want to take their time. They want to consider things. They want to go slow and steady and really take their time with things. But that physical energy is there. They also can't help but to move, to act, to go, to get. And those two conflicting things makes them very slow learners. It makes them very easily frustrated with complex problems. Not because they can't do it, it's just quite tough for them. So that is reflected in the ability scores, yada yada yada. There's not much we can do about it. So anyway, so they have this sort of conflicting ideologies in their own makeup that make learning and that sort of thing kind of difficult for them. What else we got going on with the Avarak? A few other things. One is, why'd I give him a pickaxe? Why's that picture? The guy got a pickaxe. Why's he got that? What's he doing with it? Mining is a very common thing that Avarak are put to use to do. Whether it be by choice, whether it be because it's work they can do. They are totally immune to poisons, so like coal smoke and that kind of shit really doesn't do anything to them. They can see very well in the dark. They kind of don't like the bright light of the day. They're much more comfortable underground. It is a natural calling for them to be subterranean, and it kind of gets them away from people and stuff that wants to take advantage of them. And yeah, so mining is very common for them. In fact, it's part of why you just don't see a ton of Avarak. Even though Setsegia is one of the places where they are most prevalent. Any who manage to migrate, this is a place they like to go. They don't necessarily like the rain, but there's a ton of tunnels. They're free to go do them. There's lots of people want things mined or excavated. There's lots of work there, lots of independence. So this is a pretty common depiction of an Avarak. As mean as he looks, doesn't mean he is. Uh, yeah. So, um, anyway, when considering this race in the world of Hayethe, one of the main things to understand about them is they are they're not really a free people, which is unfortunate for them. They don't completely know their origin. Obviously, they know where they come from. They come from an Avar and a Mercog, probably, you know, not having the best of time. But oh yeah, that was the other thing. Speaking of which, so yeah, if like all these unions that create Avarak are like bad, generally speaking, how do they even keep happening? You know, you would expect maybe it'd be one thing if there was like wars going on or something, right? Bad people exist. They do bad things. They capture innocent folks and then make them do things, right? Like, basically, most Avarak are the products of other captive people being forced to create them. It's not happy. It's not a happy tale. It's not meant to be. But the other thing to know about Avarak is they actually live quite a long time. While they do miraculously mature in 13 years, and raising them to maturity is very expensive because they have to eat voraciously, like a lot. Because I mean, look at dude over here. Look at the lats on that guy. Look at him. Look at the freaking delts. It takes a lot of protein to build all that up, right? So yeah, they have to eat a shitload to get to maturity, and they mature so quickly. Yeah. Now, into the biology or whatever, like the brain develops a bit slower than that. So it's like even when they hit 13 years old, even though they're physically mature, they're not totally adult, right? Because even in Pathfinder, 15 is where a human hits adulthood, right? So you can imagine 13 is their 15. So they're not like a grown-ass person, but they're grown enough. But even though they mature that quickly, they get to that age that fast, people don't really know how long they actually live. How? Why don't people know how long they live, naturally? That's kind of weird, isn't it? Well, because Avarak tend to go batshit insane when they get around 100 years old. Yeah, hasn't really been discussed much in game, but it is an aspect that does exist, and no one really knows why. The Avarak tend to, once they get around that age, if they are in captivity, they'll be either killed or released off, into the wilderness somewhere in the unclaimed, where they'll go off and do their own thing, probably get killed by some other crazy beast out there. But people don't want no part of them, because you can imagine, a creature like that going ballistic is pretty scary. And at 100, they're still not suffering physical defects. Basically, no one's ever really seen an old Avarak, like actually old. Because, that's happened. And there's no real known reason why. But the Avarak have I wouldn't call it a legend. They kind of have their own mythology concerning it, which is essentially when they begin to reach that age, that is when all of all the rage and the repressed anger of their people from how they've been treated begins to set in. And so few of them get to reach that age from just mistreatment, from cave-ins, from whatever else is happening, that it all seems to, even from all the others, it coalesces into the few who reach, that level of maturity And taking on that much anger and fury and desire for revenge in one body that's already, unfortunately, because of the Rakak blood, predisposed to have these like passionate outbursts is a lot. Haven't seen it happen yet. It is a thing that I am very much looking forward to presenting. But yeah, so if you're wondering, how come we haven't seen any old Avarak? That's why. That's why. Because you probably don't want to. So, yeah. They live a while. They live a long while. So they don't have to, like, you could have them around for, a couple of generations, depending on what race your family is, before it's like, hey, you kind of need to leave society so you don't end up killing a lot of people. So yeah, that's its own thing. It's part of the reason also why they're just weird. But yeah, that is my rambling, could have been better explanation for the Avarak, but I really wanted to get this video out. So I'm gonna try to clean it up now, do some editing, get it out before I go to bed. Because it is almost 4 a.m. now. If you have some other questions, if you want me to clarify anything or just go into more detail, I would be more than happy to. Just shoot me a comment. Just add a comment down there. Go down below, hit that like button because YouTube, and thumbs up, whatever. Hit the like button. Then go a little bit lower down there, see where them comments are, and just be like, "Yo, but can you have like an Avarak boyfriend or girlfriend? What if you did that? I don't know. Whatever your stupid questions are, I'll enjoy them. I won't think they're stupid. Panda might. No, Panda never does. Dave might. Yeah, Hyperphase will be the one to think your question's dumb. Get on his neck about it. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. Please ask me whatever you feel like asking me. If you think this video is horrible and you're like, no, do a better one, then whatever, let me know that too. I don't care either. Any feedback's great at this point. So yeah, that'll be that one. We'll come back and hopefully have more of these Races of Hayethe videos to kind of expand on the lore of some of the other creatures that you'll encounter or that you haven't encountered. And if you haven't checked out Into the Storm, we're in like the last arc of it at the time of this recording, so jump on over there and check it out, and hopefully we'll see you later. Thanks again. Bye.